Hi everyone, it is time for another round of Timmy's TBR, and it is time for our September round. If you are new here, Timmy's TBR is my TBR game based off my love of Tim Hortons coffee, and I roll around the board. I have to get to the end of it, and however many rolls it takes to get to the end is how many books I have to read. It can sometimes be chaotic, it can sometimes be nice. You never really know what Timmy's is going to give you. Now, there is one rule to this game that does happen, and that is once a book goes on the TBR, it cannot come off unless I DNF it or I read it. So we do have one rollover from last month that I did not get to, and that is Shadow Stitch. This is the sequel to Threadneedle, which I read a couple months ago, and it's very chunky. It's almost 700 pages, and I just did not have time this month to read this. So we're going to roll it over into September. But starting the month off with just one book is not too bad. It's not too bad. It's been worse. For the month of September, I am participating in the Mystic Falls Readathon as a co-host for Team Vampires. This readathon is based off the Vampire Diaries, and it is created by the lovely Nell Diamond. Nell is fabulous. You definitely are going to want to check out this readathon. Nell has put in so much work behind the scenes. I cannot say enough about it. I will link everything down below. Definitely go check it out, and might I suggest joining Team Vampires. But now that we've got that out of the way of what readathons I'm participating in and hoping that these books will work for those prompts, we shall see. And what rollovers we have, let's dive in to this month's rolls. Roll number 1 is a 7, a coffee space, treat your shelf. Gladly will treat my shelf. So for our first roll, we got a coffee space and the prompt of treat your shelf. This I was very happy to see because there is a book that I read last month that I really would like to continue, and that is the series by Django Wexler. Ashes of the Sun is the first book, and I need to continue it. I must know what happens next. I did not own the book when I did my rolls, which was a couple of days ago, so I did order that immediately, and it just arrived yesterday. So I do have it here, and it is Blood of the Chosen by Django Wexler. I am so excited to continue this series. Ashes of the Sun is now my favorite book of the year so far, and I cannot wait to see what happens with these characters. In that first book, we follow Maya and Geyer. They are twins that were separated at the age of about 5. The Order came and took Maya because she had an ability to be connected to the Chosen's powers and become a centaur. Geyer did not handle having his twin taken well and is now fighting against the Order to dismantle it. So they are kind of on two sides of this war, and they now meet 12 years later. And we follow what happens in that first book, and I need to know what happens next. Lots of things happened at the end of Ashes that I need answers to, and I think it's in this book. So I'm very excited to add this as my first book to Timmy's this month. Roll number 2 is another 7 and another coffee space. Triple Triple, a book with 3 T's in the title. So we have another coffee space with the prompt of 3 T's in the title, Triple Triple. And for the first time in known memory, the B&K Book Club works for a prompt. This almost never happens. I almost always have to use it as a mood read. So this is very exciting information. Very, very exciting. And what book are we reading? That's a great question. It is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. I love Lucy Foley. I really do. The guest list is my favorite. I love that classic Agatha Christie whodunit vibe that we get from Lucy Foley, and I'm really excited to read it with all of you. B&K Book Club is a book club that I run with Kelsey, my friend, here on YouTube and Instagram. The Discord is down below if you want to join us reading this. I know very little about this book, and I don't want to go too in-depthly into the synopsis, but it sounds like we're heading back to what Lucy Foley does best with a whodunit murder mystery. We have, from what it looks like, 4 different guests: the founder, the husband, the mystery guest, and the kitchen help. Everyone has an agenda. Everyone has a past, but not everyone will survive. That's all I want to know. I really want to go into this fairly blind and just hope that I have those same vibes as the guest list in here. Roll number 3 is a doubles 2 and a donut space. Boston Cream, a book set in the US. Okay, that was the worst kind of roll you can possibly have. First of all, it's the lowest roll, so I only made it 2 spaces. Second of all, it's a doubles. There's nothing worse than a double 1. That is the worst roll, and here we are, we've gotten it. So with the doubles, that does mean I have to complete the prompt twice, and that means I have to pick 2 books for this prompt of Boston Cream set in the US. Luckily, that's a pretty easy prompt. A lot of books are set in the US. A lot of books I want to read for the fall are set in the US, so this is not horrible. It could have been worse, but not by much. So the first book I'm going to put in for this prompt is Witch of Wild Things by Raquel Vasquez Gilliard. This is a romance that I picked up fairly recently, and it's like a witchy romance, which will be perfect for going into the fall. So in this book, we follow Sage. Sage has magic. She is a witch, and her specialty is plant magic, which is a type of magic I really do enjoy. I always find it so atmospheric with plants being magical and the way you can use plants, so I really was gravitated to this book because of that. Sage left her hometown when her sister passed away and needed some time away, but now she is coming home. She has gotten a job at the Cranberry Rose Company and is using her ability to communicate with plants to discover unusual heritage specimens. And she is working with a friend, another botanist called Tennessee Reeves. And Tennessee and her start to have a relationship. And Sage does not necessarily have time for a relationship, but sometimes love comes when it comes. The second book I'm going to use for this prompt of set in the US, I don't actually have a physical copy of it yet because my pre-order is not here because it hasn't come out yet. It comes out at the end of the month. And that is Daydream by Hannah Grace. I must read this book. This is one of my most anticipated books of the year. I am so excited to read this book, and I need to read it almost as soon as it arrives. I read Icebreaker way back in, I think, January. It's been a while since I've read Icebreaker, and I absolutely adored that book. It was such a great book for me. I've read the sequel. I've reread Icebreaker and annotated it. Like, I have read a lot of Hannah Grace and Maple Hills this year. And my favorite character from the first book and the second book is Henry. I love Henry with all of my heart's pieces. Like, I adore Henry. And this is Henry's book. I finally get to see Henry's romance. And I must read this immediately. So this had to get on the TBR. I don't even really know who Henry's love interest is. And since I don't have the book here and I don't really want to read the synopsis because I just want to experience it for what it is, I'm going to leave it there that it is the third book in Icebreaker and it follows Henry. Roll number 4 is a 5, a series space. So for our series space, I get to work on any series that I need to work on or that I want to work on to get some of these currently reading series off my list. I am in the middle of like 50 some series. I need to complete some of them. I really, really do. But for this month, I am going to put on a mandatory read because I need to read it anyway. And she's chunky. And I thought I would have started it by now, but I have not. And that book is Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan. This is the 6th book in the Wheel of Time series. I thought I would start this in August. I didn't. I did mention it in my August TBR, but it was not in one of the roles. It was just as like, hey, I also need to read this. So now it's officially on the Timmies TBR. I've been reading through Wheel of Time all year over on the B&K Discord. If you want to jump in with us, you are more than welcome to jump in at any time. Even if you're a little bit behind us, it's a very laid back buddy read, kind of read at your own pace situation. Roll number 5 is a 5, an iced coffee space, water on the cover. We are moving around this board at a very leisurely pace. I would like to move a little faster because, again, every roll is at least one book. And this TBR is starting to get a bit chunky. But that's okay. That's okay. That's fine. For water on the cover, I am going to add a newer release that I picked up fairly recently as part of a Shop With Me video, and that is Whiskey Business by Elliot Fletcher. If you look very closely at the back, there's a waterfall in like some sort of lake situation. So that's the water that I'm using. In this book, we follow April. April is now an award-winning actress, but she's kind of stepping away from the spotlight to go back home and save her family's distillery business. When she gets there, she discovers Malcolm, who is a cranky distiller who works for the company. And he is also trying to save it in his own way. And the two of them have to come together to help save this business. And I suspect there to be a romance. I suspect a grumpy sunshine situation. Both of these things are things that I really do enjoy. I am definitely in my fantasy and romance era. Those are really the two genres that I am currently reading. I haven't been picking up a ton of thrillers or really anything else. I do realize that I do have the Midnight Feast on this TBR, but you're going to notice that I'm gravitating definitely towards fantasy or romance, and that's really it lately. Which is unfortunate heading into spooky season because I feel like thrillers is spooky season. But I think I'm going to stick with fantasy and like romances that bring the fall vibes. This one not necessarily does, but some of the ones that I'm picking definitely will kind of give me fall vibes, I hope. Roll number 6 is a 3, a timid space, book with mental health rep. We rolled a 3. We are never getting to the end of the board. We're never going to get there at this rate. We're never going to get there. But for this prompt, we did get a book with mental health rep. And for this, I'm going to pick up a manga because this TBR is getting a little bit big. I bought this during Amazing Readathon and I was really hoping to get to this during Face Off. It didn't happen. So now I'm going to read it now. And it's called My Brain is Different, Stories of ADHD and Other Developmental Disorders. It follows 9 different adults that are neurospicy. And they are based off true stories. I love that it's a manga. I think it's really different from the mangas I've read, and I'm excited to dive into this book during the month of September. Roll number 7 is a 9 and gets us to the end of the board and a mood read. I think Timmy's heard me. It heard me. It heard that I was never thinking we were going to get there, and it decided to just get me there in one more roll. However, we do have 8 books on the TBR, so that is very chunky. Plus 1 rollover, so 9 books. That's a lot. That's a lot of books. But that's okay. We are at the end of the board, and that means I have to do a mood read or free space. This is an easy pick. My patrons and I are going to be reading this book next month, and I have heard nothing but fabulous things, so I'm excited to dive into this book. And that is The Spell Shop. These purple edges are everything in life. Like, they are so beautiful. And the reason I picked this up was that, and also the amazing reviews that I've been hearing from people that I know and trust in books. I've heard there's also a very cute side character, and we all know that I am a sucker for a cute, adorable side character. I'm really hoping I like this. Really, really hoping I like this. It is cozy, but I have high hopes. So I believe our main character is called Keela, but I may have to adjust my pronunciation of that as I listen to the audiobook because I may be saying that wrong. But Keela is the librarian at the Great Library of Elysium, and she has an assistant, Kaz, who is a sentient spider. I believe this is the cute side character that I have been told about. A revolution happens, and the library is set aflame. So Keela and Kaz gather up as many spell books as they can, and they flee to her hometown. And this is not a place she ever thought she'd go back to, but now she has. She has returned home. I believe this is kind of a small town, cozy cottage vibe. I do love a small town. So there's a lot of things in this book that I think are going to work for me. Needing money, Keela starts to make jam for the local bakery in town and also all the people in her village. Again, baking, cooking, something I have interest in. So I really think I'm going to like this. I have super high hopes, but on the September TBR goes. So here is our September TBR. We have 9 books on the TBR. We have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus 2 books that I don't have physically yet, which is Daydream and Shadow Spell. So 9 books. And some of them are quite chunky. But again, there is a manga in here and a few romances that we'll read quickly. So it should be good. We'll see how September goes. It will depend on how many of these work for Mystic Falls. We'll just have to wait and see when I sit down and figure that out. But this is the TBR. What is something on your September TBR? Please let me know in the comments. I would love to know what you're going to be reading going into the fall and spooky season. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.